Colonel, you were wrong about something. I did come to hear you speak. And so did this crowd. It's an absolute honor to be here. I was in with Conor McGregor yesterday. I was in the Oval Office a couple days ago. I'm in every meeting you can conceive of. None of them make me nervous. This does. It makes me nervous because it matters. It makes me nervous because it's in front of peers. It's in front of people that I admire. People who were with me shoulder to shoulder, in combat, on the battlefield, when everything mattered. When it was all on the line. All that mattered was who you were with, what you were capable of together, what the mission was in front of you, who had your back behind you. And so, Colonel, I want to thank you for always having our back. Colonel Mike Steele always had our back, and we knew it. And I knew it from the first speech he gave at Fort Campbell up on a stage just like this. You guys remember it. Put Patton to shame. It is a privilege and it is an honor to stand in front of all of you to honor one man, Eric Garrissey. I knew him as First Sergeant Eric Garrissey. A lot of you knew him as the same, who changed my life, changed a lot of your lives. That's why this room is packed with people who were impacted by him. Yet I know when you talk to him, and I've talked to him today, and a lot of you have, and we'll talk to him throughout the day, he will simply say, as he always does, this is not about me. This is about all of you. This is about what we did together. And I give a lot of speeches, and I stand on a lot of stages, and I get a lot of applause. And every time I speak, basically what I think about is this room. I think about the men that I see out here, many faces that are very familiar to me, that I haven't seen in a very long time, who were there for me and with me when it mattered most. And the fact that they never get the applause, they never get the headlines, they never get the bright lights, they never get the microphones. No one's heard their story, no one's familiar with their story, no one's pinned an award on them, and if they got it, maybe it was sent to them to the mail clerk, like it was the first time to Eric Garrissey. Literally, his Silver Star was sent through the mail to a mail clerk. They didn't get the recognition. They didn't get the praise. And I remember that every time I stand. This is not about me. I'm nothing special. I'm a soldier who served under extraordinary leadership and am more honored today than any other opportunity I've had at the Pentagon thus far to stand on this stage with fellow soldiers, with the men of Eagle Company, the men of Charlie Company, the men of those units who understand what the stakes were, understand how significant those moments were. We'll never forget them, are shaped in every possible way since then about them. And just like we look at the Medal of Honor, when someone receives the Medal of Honor and you say, you know what, yes, that's an award for one individual, but it really is an award for my generation, for what we did. I know, like you, that's how I feel for Eric Garrissey receiving this award today. Long overdue. Injustice of multitudes of injustices served upon him and other men he served with. And I remember when we first sort of hatched maybe the opportunity that something like this could be possible. It felt so distant, so impossible, so unlikely, so improbable. We felt like on behalf of those men that he served with, we have to do something about it. Because each one of us has not one Eric Garrissey story, we have lots of Eric Garrissey stories. Mine, I showed up as a brand new first lieutenant to the unit just a few weeks before we mobilized to go to Kuwait for pre-mob. I was a National Guard, Ivy League, Wall Street, non-Ranger qualified platoon leader who had not deployed before. How do you think Eric Garrissey looked at me when I showed up? I was even wearing the wrong uniform, the old BDUs, because I was in a National Guard uniform. This guy looked me up and down and was like, who the hell is this guy? The only person that had vouched for me was at that time Captain Dan Hart, who's now a colonel and an incredible human being, an amazing example for many of us, had been my platoon trainer at IOBC. And I'll spare you the full story, but I was itching to get involved, and he vouched for me, and Colonel Steele signed off on it, and my unit did. And soon enough, I found myself at Fort Campbell and doing everything I could to sort of prove that I was capable of being part of this incredible unit. And Eric, as he was both my toughest critic and also my best mentor at the same time. He gave me a very affectionate nickname. It was National Garbage. That I got to earn my way out of in real time. And his expectations were incredibly high because he had been to combat. He'd seen it. He understood it. And he wanted to infuse in us, just like Colonel Steele, this understanding of in that moment, in that crucible is when you are tested. And the only thing that prepares you for that crucible is the training, the realistic training, time and time again, iteration after iteration, that prepares you for that moment, that explosion, that crack of the bullet. How do you respond? Will you get violent quickly, as is necessary? And so he pounded that into my skull, metaphorically and physically, probably. We trained more. And it wasn't until that, a first couple initial operations, all I cared when I came back basically was, did Eric Garrissey, did the first sergeant feel like we were squared away, like we did all right? Nothing else mattered. It was the men you were serving with and the reality and the perception of your leadership with them. Were you going to be there for you? Were you going to bring the effects to bear on the enemy necessary? Were you prepared? Were you over-prepared? Were you, what was the word you used is, were you fanatical about preparing every single aspect that we were doing? Because the goal, yes, it was to accomplish the mission, but it was to bring your boys home with you in the process. We arranged funerals for the other side, not ours. And that was something that was, whether it was in Fort Campbell, at Kuwait, and throughout our mission. So it doesn't surprise me that when he went to Eagle Company, he infused the very same mentality. We're not taking over a combat outpost. We're going to immediately improve the defense in real time. And guess what? Joe is going to bitch about it because we're going to spend 36 hours without sleeping, without resting. Am I right about that, sir? That's right about that. Yeah. Yeah. He bitched. Because he had been there. He had seen it. He understood what would happen once chaos rained down on the entire formation, on the entire platoon and on the entire company. And in that moment, either you were prepared or you weren't. And Eric Garrissey went back again to combat after the injustice that happened to him on our rotation, because he didn't want it happening to another subset of men if he could be a part of preventing it. And that's precisely what he did for Eagle Company. That's precisely what he did on that day in 2007. It's precisely why we are here today. And we're not just here because of that day. Yes, that day is incredibly meaningful. And we will read the citation today. And I told my kids this morning, I said, you listen up. That's why they're here today. Listen to that citation. Understand what men did, what a man did, what a group of people did in a far-flung place no one's ever heard of, at a time no one will ever remember, in a way that shaped the lives of those men that will change them forever. And we ought to use a forum like this as much as possible to remind people of those special things, to motivate future generations to be willing to do the same. And what we celebrate, what we recognize is a reflection of what we honor, what we believe is important. And in this case, it's recognizing the actions of that day and undoing an injustice. So we're here today because a lot of men stood up for Eric Garrissey after he stood up for them. They would not quit on him, would not quit on the injustice that was done to him, saying, we will continue to push this forward because without naming names, we understand the reason why this particular packet, this particular action, never quite made it up to the top of the Army. Never quite made it to the upper echelon. Never quite made it for signature. Even though those that were most directly involved, that saw it firsthand, that were commanders at the time, all the way up to General Odierno and General Petraeus, signed off on the actions that day merit a Distinguished Service Cross. But it was downgraded and it was sent to a mail clerk. And we all know why. Today, that changes. Today, that wrong is made right. I want to thank all the men and women that didn't stop, that kept pushing, that weren't silent. I want to thank, by the way, Senator Rubio and his staff, now Secretary of State Rubio, as a resident of Florida. They took up the case when no one else was really willing to move on it, and they pushed, and they kept pushing, and we pushed them a little bit, and then they kept pushing, and Secretary Rubio sends his regards. For sure, as does the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, also a Floridian who was aware of this case. General Petraeus submitted time and time again recommendations to reinforce the recommendation he made in real time. As we resubmitted the packet, how many times did we submit the packet? 15 times? I don't even know. As we resubmitted it again, the men of Eagle Company, who wrote another sworn statement and another one with new information reminding the folks who had disapproved it why this was worthy of recognition. So throughout this process, the men I look at and see out here, the men and women, but the men that served with Eric, never forgot what he did for them and with them. And as a result, this audience never forgot about what Eric did and wanted to see a day like today. And I'll never forget, it was, a year ago or so, I thought, man, wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't that be incredible if you actually got this thing? And President Trump won, and we were able to present you the DSC. And then sure enough, a couple months after that, President Trump wins, and he picks an Army major to be his Secretary of Defense. National garbage. And I remember talking to Eric. I said, Eric, not only are we going to get you this award, but we're going to pin it on you in the bowels of the Pentagon with everybody here with you. And here we are today. And now, those of you that don't know, and most of you do, one of the first people I called when I was given the honor by President Trump to be chosen for this position was Eric. Eric has a way of sticking with you in a good way. I thought, who the hell? This is a big job. Who do I call? One of the first people on my list. Well, actually, I should tell the story first. I called Eric 2 minutes before the announcement hit Fox News that I had been chosen. And Eric, I can't say what he said on the phone because my kids are here. But he went running into the other room, and sure enough, Laura Ingraham announced it, and he almost passed out. He couldn't believe it. But right soon after that, as we were talking, I said, Eric, if I'm confirmed, if this happens, I need you to come with me. I need you there by my side, just like you were there with us by our side. By the way, Eric always had a way of showing up when it was the most difficult time. And he's not making it more difficult. He knows it's your most difficult time. And that's why he's not in the command post. He's out in the field, at your combat outpost, on patrol, on Christmas, on the worst days when you're missing the family the most. There's Eric Garrissey. And he's possibly wearing a Santa Claus outfit. With proper body armor as well. Body armor, of course. He was always there for his men whenever they needed him. And when I called him, he said, sir, I will be there with you through thick and thin. And sure enough, he was. He was sitting behind me during the confirmation hearing. You may have seen him. He's the prettiest one of the bunch, except my wife. And I'll never forget, he told me after that, because I told him, I said, don't buy an apartment in D.C. till this process is done. You never know. I said, don't do it. Don't put that pressure on me. Sure enough, after the hearing, he went to me and said, I bought my apartment 2 days ago, sir. I just didn't tell you. He said, I knew you were going to nail it. It was going to be fine. I said, damn you. And sure enough, Eric Garrissey's right down the hall from me, from the Office of the Secretary of Defense. And that is exactly the kind of voice that we need inside the decision loop, inside the conversations about the types of decisions being made for the joint force, for the armed forces of the United States of America. Someone who has been there, who's been in the middle of it, who's never did it for himself, always did it for others, thought of the troops in real time, of the impact on them and their families. If you know him, he's the biggest tough guy you've ever met, but he's also the biggest softy you've ever met. He's an amazing human being. I can't tell you already how many times he's come to me and said, hey, take a look at this, think about this, you're missing that. Or he's reading the tea leaves and sees an ambush up ahead, says, look around, put your head up. That's the kind of counsel that we need. That's the kind of counsel that I greatly value. It's an honor to have you there. He's earned the respect of our staff, as you surprises nobody, in real time. And he's going to have a chance to shape the very force that he was a part of shaping, first as a private, and then all the way through Command Sergeant Major. Even the stuff he did more recently down in Southcom has been immediately valuable to what we're doing across the force. So it's really the honor of a career to be able to be here with all of you. I look forward to be getting a chance to say hi to so many of you I haven't seen in a long time. It just feels good. Sometimes the good guys win. And it feels like today that happened. So Eric, I want to thank you. I want to thank your wife. I want to thank your family, some of which we were able to get here at the last minute. I'm glad we did. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank my wife, my kids for being here, the Army Secretary for being here as well. Dan Driscoll, thank you. General George, thank you so much for pushing this through to the end. And then to finish where Colonel Steele properly started, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I think, praise God, from whom all blessings flow, all good things, all bad things happen for a reason. There is no plan B in our life. We're all here for a reason orchestrated by Him. And may we be instruments for Him during our time on earth. That's certainly how I see my job on behalf of our country, God and country, and working alongside men like Eric. So I'm honored to be here with all of you today. Grateful for what you've done. And how about we pin an award on this guy? I love you.